just what you're doing now. I mean, you grew up in Hettinger, and now you're in Fargo, and you had a life in politics. So just kind of, without getting into war and peace, tell us what you've been doing.
Sure. Well, after the congressional period, I really decided my focus has been real estate. That's what I've done for 30 years, and so what I've been looking for is opportunities, and it's been exciting across North Dakota that I can partner up with younger people that are interested in earning equity in real estate. And so we've been doing apartment projects, office projects, retail projects, and various projects throughout North Dakota.
So when you say real estate, you're talking more the developments rather than, say, like housing?
Well, yeah, I mean, generally real estate, if you talk about commercial would be everything except a residential single-family house, and so that's really been our focus and where we're at.
Just name a few that you've done recently that people might know, if you wouldn't mind, I guess.
Well, I mean, one of the exciting projects we've done is up along 12th Avenue North, called Northtown Crossing, which is near NDSU, and it's a project that's a little over 200 units, and we're kind of a little bit wondering how that would develop and how it would lease up. And it's one of those projects that was fully leased 60 days before the construction was done.
Banks gotta like that.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
Is that the one in the T lot?
No, this would be more towards the Staymart. You have I-29, and you're coming towards NDSU. It's again, it was just open dirt, and now it's been fully developed. And so, yeah.
So that's going good?
Yeah, and then on the other side, existing project like the multi-band building, we partners together and are doing that. And that's exciting because there's businesses in there that are growing, and you kind of feel like you're helping them, create jobs and earn a living and support themselves. And so that's really been what's fun.
Are you doing anything out west at all?
I am.
What's going on out west? Of course, Rick Berg is our guest, former Congressman Rick Berg, and he's an American entrepreneur, and that's why we have him in here. And he's from Hettinger, North Dakota. Now we have affiliates in Sundance, Wyoming, and Newcastle, Wyoming, and Baker, Montana, and Belle Fourche even. So you're from that area, that ranching side of the state. So are you doing any
West River country?
Yeah.
West River country.
So do you still got some roots there? Do you still got some activity?
Absolutely. My mom's still in Hettinger, so we always get back over the 4th, and so we had a great time. Hettinger is one of those communities that on the 4th of July they have a free meal after the parade, and everyone from probably 50 miles around comes, and so it's always it's a great community. I think that's where I learned my commitment to wanting to put back in the community and that kind of stuff. And Hettinger's not unique. It's small towns throughout Wyoming, Montana, South Dakota, Minnesota that have the same thing.
So you're doing some real estate out west?
Well, actually, yeah. I kind of joke a little bit. I'm selling oil.
Okay. You wouldn't be the only one in the state.
Well, but I sell it by the quart.
Oh.
So what we did, I've got a partner that has developed several Jiffy Lubes in Wisconsin and other areas, and he said he really thought this would be a great niche out in Williston and Watford City. And so I'm not the operator,
sure.
So we have just opened Watford City about a week ago. And it's kind of like I always thought in the gold rush back in California, the people that were most successful were the guys that had the hardware store, not necessarily all the miners. So I thought, well, what are the services that they're missing? And so car wash and Jiffy Lube is kind of one of the projects. But I just love Western North Dakota. You
know what my first story was in 2012 on the Bakken? Selling picks and shovels. That is who the winners of the Bakken are. Not the oil companies. Yeah. We already know they're the winners, but it's the hardware guys selling the picks and the shovels or the oil changes. Because that's really how the economy works. That's how it gets going. Yeah, you have your leaders of the economy, but that stuff, whether it's trickle down or whatever word you want to use, and you're an example of that. You're showing that. So kudos to you. Jiffy Lube, they're doing some cutting edge stuff. I don't know how involved you get. I interviewed the president of Jiffy Lube last summer, and he was talking about their natural gas engines. No, I'm sorry, natural gas oil. They're making an oil out of natural gas, which is going to help reduce some of the natural gas issues out in the Bakken. So. Do you fly much? Are you flying?
Oh yeah. Whenever I possibly can, I just love it.
Have you noticed any improvements going on in the airports across North Dakota? Because there's the Minot one just redone, but the reason I ask is there's a considerable investment going into the state in the aviation. I don't know how in tune you are with it or not, but.
Well, the whole challenge we've had in Western North Dakota is just how the infrastructure has lagged all the development. And it's kind of, you have the private sector and you have government. I mean, generally it takes government years and years and years to build something or fund something. And when you have something like the impact we've had in the oil industry, I mean, it's happening now. And so in Western North Dakota, that's been the huge pinch. And obviously there's a bit of a slowdown right now, but I think, we're going to see it really making Western North Dakota a lot stronger. And I think the potential for future oil development even better because this infrastructure is going to catch up.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've made the argument that Minneapolis and Fargo were very early winners in the Bakken craze, because of the distribution cycle, the distribution arteries that were set up. Did you see that? I mean, have you seen Fargo become a pretty good beneficiary?
There's absolutely no question about it. I mean, one of the things that, and you hit the nail on the head, so many of the products that are sold, and of course Williston I think had higher retail sales than Fargo did one quarter, but a lot of those products are distributed through Minneapolis and Fargo, and so maybe there's 3% or 5%, or some of that distribution cost stays in Fargo, and so people don't necessarily in Fargo see that, hey, I'm getting a check directly from the oil industry, but I'm pretty sure if you went 2 or 3 steps down, you'd find it touching almost every person, every employee, and every family in the Fargo area.
I'm pretty sure if you ask like Fargo Tank and a couple of these steel manufacturers,
sure, absolutely.
I mean, they know it firsthand because they were shipping stuff out there all the time. And a lot of people don't look at those natural resource businesses, do they? They kind of just take them for granted that they're there, American Steel and everything else, and the farmers, whatever. These natural resource things really do keep the economy moving.
Absolutely.
That's what I've noticed, anyways. Okay, life after politics. How's that going? Are you do you get mixed up from time to time?
It's kind of funny because it's like, at first it was like I'd be really upset about 5 to 10 times a week, and then now it's maybe less than 5 times. But the things that frustrated me, it was interesting. So I talked to Jack Dalrymple this week. And, I think he's just done an outstanding job as governor, and he and I were elected to the North Dakota House at the same time. And, he was kind of reflecting, saying, the things that we wanted to accomplish way back when we first got elected, it's taken so many of them, it takes a long time for those to happen and those evolve. And so I think for me, so many of the issues that I've worked on in my life over on a policy standpoint, both in North Dakota and at the national level, I think it'll probably be about another 10 or 20 years before we actually see some of those things happen. And so it's hard not to still be passionate about wanting the outcomes. And quite frankly, I think we still need a balanced budget. I think we still need a strong economy. So.
Is it difficult for you to get into political discussions?
It's difficult for me to get out of them. No,
That's true. People probably just come up to you in the street and start talking.
Oh, there's just a lot of people and they're concerned. And, the interesting thing for me is it is a different culture in politics. And so it's always been fun for me to have a foot both in the private sector as well as the political sector. And there's very few people that do that. I mean, typically most of the people that are in elected office, that's their full-time job for 10, 20, 30 years. They don't do anything else. Or you have business people that are like, too busy to ever, run for something or be in something. And so it's interesting that difference there. And so it's been kind of fun. I feel like I'm an interpreter sometimes.
Yeah. Let's talk about another balancing act. The balancing act of being a politician and a business owner has its own challenges. But how about being a business owner, a business leader, and a family man? How do you give some young folks some advice that maybe are, working at home, raising their kid, not seeing their wife very much, and the wife maybe isn't seeing the husband very much? That gets to be hard, I bet.
Oh, absolutely.
And you traveled for politics quite a bit, so you probably had a little bit more than the average person. So you got any advice for people out there about how to balance home and work?
I'm probably not the best person to give that advice, but the thing that I always found is try and be in the present and make time. Mm-hmm. So you can be running 100 miles an hour, but on a Saturday, if you're spending an hour with your son or your daughter, try and not be thinking about everything else and just focus on them and what they're doing. And likewise during the week with the other family members. I think the best thing is I think it recharges you when you really connect with them. And so, again, time, how much time you can spend with them is important, and kind of being in the present. So
Time.
I give advice, but I don't always take it myself. So
Hey, that's how we all are.
Yeah.
That's I just tell people I don't give advice because I have too big of a glass house and too many stones.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be throwing and cast anyways. Just advice to young entrepreneurs. You're working with a lot of young entrepreneurs. I think it's great what you're doing with, it sounds like you're doing some sweat equity options.
Absolutely.
Which a lot of people don't understand how that necessarily works, where your labor becomes your money over time
Yep.
based on milestones and contracts and agreements, not just saying, yes, you got to go out and perform now. Just advice you might have to somebody either investing their own money or taking on a partner.
Well, I mean, the best advice I could give to someone that's again, I don't know if it needs to be young, but someone that's starting their own business or doing something like, number one, look for a successful model in that business. I mean, who's already done? Because everything you want to do, someone's kind of done it already. So find that person. And then the second thing is find a mentor that understands that business and that can be on the same side of the table as you. Because there's a lot of people that, again, like me, have been in the real estate business for 30 years. I love to give advice to people that are doing real estate projects or anything like that, and I'm sure it's similar for every single industry out there. And those people not only are willing to give you advice and direction, they're probably willing to put some capital in, as long as they know you're kind of both in kind of with the same motivation, and you both benefit if it's successful. You both maybe have to tighten your belt if it's not successful. That's the kind of relationship that I think I'll say more senior investors, more senior mentors or business people would like.
And the last question for you, unless you have anything you want to discuss. You ever had a fan encounter where you've run into somebody famous or somebody who's really, whether it be a business guy?
Well, it's you, Jason. I mean, it's like when I got the call from you. Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. We said Tuesday, that wouldn't work, but how about Thursday?
Yeah.
No, I'm just curious. I'm just doing a collection of these. One guy ended up in a hot tub with Danny Glover. It's just kind of weird interactions. And I thought with all your dealings, you might have ran into Donald Trump or something like that.
Yeah, I haven't ran into him yet, but I mean, I've just really been blessed to really meet a lot of different people at a pretty much high level. And what I find is, I'm just thinking back even through this last cycle with Romney and some of the other people that were at that level, Paul Ryan, etc. They're just normal people, and I think that's one thing that I wish everyone could understand to some degree, that a lot of the people that have been successful, they're not successful because they're ruthless or they're successful because they get along well with people, they communicate, and they have really kind of others' best interest, might be their customer or their consumer or something like that. So I've always found those, some of those people have been really kind of an inspiration, but not what you'd originally think.
Yeah, I understand what you mean there, yeah. Well, what I always tell people about business is when you have a new business idea or any kind of business, somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. Okay, now theoretically everybody wins, but you look at it, there's a loser. So penicillin came about. Penicillin, pretty good, right? Well, the magic amulet guy went out of business when penicillin came. Now, it's kind of funny to say like that, but before penicillin, that's what people used, was magic amulets and leeches and things like that. So when penicillin came about, there was a movement against penicillin for the magic amulet people. So it's really no different, is it? I mean, we come up with a new idea, a new concept. Somebody is going to have to adapt and change their way in order to keep moving on. Otherwise, they're going to get behind.
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
No, I was just, when you were saying that, I watched the series, The Founding Fathers, I think it was, of America, and it talked about how Edison and electricity was coming out. J.P. Morgan was promoting that. And Rockefeller, of course, it would cut into his kerosene market. So he was trying to explain how terrible electricity was. And so there's, again, innovation, you can get really discouraged with some new innovation because there's people that are afraid of that being a success when it impacts their business. So
and really, that's what it is, isn't it? It's fear.
Absolutely.
I mean, another movement against electricity was the Quakers.
Yeah.
The Quakers and the Hutterites, still, I believe there's certain Mennonites, Hutterites that don't use levels of electricity because they deem it a tool from the devil.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, hey, to each their own, I guess. But
one of the modern day examples is probably Uber and what's going on. A lot of cities have a very strong taxi cab system that's unionized, and I think in New York City it costs you $1 million to have the right to have one cab.
Wow.
Well, so then all of a sudden Uber comes along and it kind of opens that whole model up, and it's going to be important, again, whatever business you're in, if you can see those sea changes happening and try and, figure out a way to be in that area, that's great.
Well, it's like we were talking about, even this communication business, we're going through a sea change as well, where we're trying to figure out how to incorporate print and radio and television and the internet and books and live events all into one on $5. You know what I mean? It's like everybody's trying to make $10 out of $2 because they got to give $20 worth of service. Well, those people who figure out how to make the best steak sandwich and adapt it are going to win in the end.
Right.
And that's kind of what's going on that I see. Real estate can't be any different. I mean, turn of the century, people did not have plumbing.
Right.
You remember that, right?
No.
Back in New York City, that was a big sea change to where the Department of Public Health came in and said, okay, apartment people, you have to have plumbing now. Too many people are getting typhoid and dying or whatever else, and that there was a movement against that too, but in the end it was for the betterment of everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so all right, sir. Hey, you got anything you need to say?
No,
Say hi?
just thank you, and for thanks for all the people that have been out there making our economy go in North Dakota. And wherever you're at, I mean, sometimes your particular market's hot, sometimes it's cold, but just know that there's a lot of people that appreciate all that hard work that's going into that and the jobs that are created. So thanks you for that.
Congressman Berg, thank you very much. Even the former, what is it the correct way to title you these days?
I don't know. Rick.
That's what you always told me.
Call me
Rick.
Rick.
You told me that when you were a congressman too. So, all right. Hey, thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Good stuff.